Good start. I call to order the December 6th meeting of the City of West Sacramento Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission at 6 p.m. Clerk, could you please call roll?
Chair David Jantz.
Present.
Vice Chair Sasha Horwitz.
Present.
Arouj Ahmad. Present. Vanessa Castro.
Present.
Suzanne Reed.
Here.
Don Schatzel.
Here.
And Carlo Altamirano is absent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will begin with a land acknowledgement. New for me, but we will begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Thank you. That's nice. I like that. All right, so we'll move on to our Pledge of Allegiance. We would like to invite our guests to join the commission and staff in the pledge, which will be led by Commissioner Schatzel. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, moving on to presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda. Presentation by the public not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of this commission. As noted on our agenda, we are prohibited by state law from discussing or taking any action on items that are brought up under item 1, but it provides an important opportunity to a public forum. We do have one request to speak from Ernie. Welcome, Ernie.
Commissioners, staff, first I want to start by saying thank you for all that you do for our community. Your hard work, your dedication, your late nights, everything that you do is much appreciated, and it makes a difference. I'm here to give a plug for our baseball fields in West Sacramento. Not because they're in any immediate danger or threat, just to plant a seed, for the future, that they're important. And as we look at our master plan and, develop our parks and improve them, I hope that they are a priority to us to preserve, to maintain, to, improve, not an afterthought, And just real quick, I'm a lifelong resident of West Sac. My family's been here for 6 generations. I played baseball, football, basketball here in West Sacramento. I raised my kids. They're grown now. I coach them. I coach many kids here in West Sacramento. I got to tell you, I've been working in a professional career for 29 years now. I've got a college education. And the time that I spent playing sports, recreational and competitive sports here in West Sacramento is by far the greatest education I've ever received. I've made lifelong friends. They're still here in the community, deep roots in the community. I've coached kids. Now I have a grandson who's growing up. And again, I'm here to just put a plug in for them. 20 years ago when I played, fields were scarce to practice on. We need fields to play on, but we also need fields to practice on to improve our skills, to build those bonds, camaraderie, etc. And it's important, So with that, I told my wife I was going to come speak today. I didn't plan this ahead of time. And she said, "Do you really think one voice is going to matter?" And I said, "I don't know, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate you letting me speak." Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. I would love to say something, but I'm not supposed to, so if you knew my history and background, you'd know why. Okay, were there any other comments submitted? Okay. So then we're moving on to item 2, consent agenda. consideration of approval of the minutes for the August 2nd regular meeting, which I was absent from, so I'll abstain from.
Can we get a motion
Yeah,
to approve?
Commissioner Schatzel just moved the motion to the approval. Do we have a second? Would you please call roll?
You can just, all those in favor.
Okay.
Say
Aye.
Aye.
anyone opposed?
That's unanimous.
The minutes are approved. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, great. Well, we're moving right along to our item number 3, the regular agenda, which is a design presentation workshop on the West Egger Park renovation and expansion project by our very own Tracy Michael.
Thank you. Good evening. Chair Jans, members of the commission, Tracy Michael, Parks and Recreation Director. This item is a design workshop for the West Acre Park expansion and renovation project. And I am joined this evening by the Melton Design Group team, Greg Melton, who's here, who will walk through the design process and concepts created to date. We are looking for feedback from the commission and any members of the public who wish to speak on this item tonight in order to continue advancing the park design. The West Acre Park expansion and renovation project includes renovation of the entire park site, including expanding the park onto adjacent vacant property owned by Washington Unified School District. West Acre Park is owned by the school district, but improved and maintained by the city. This project is funded wholly by the Prop 68 statewide park development and community revitalization program in the amount of $7.843 million. Per the terms of that grant funding, the project must be completed by March of 2025 and must include at a minimum the following components: demolition or modification of the existing warehouse buildings on the additional property we are combining with the current park site, and that is to accommodate a renovated skate park, renovated and or expanded basketball court and sport courts, a pump track, a shade structure, new play area equipment, a walking loop, on-site parking, a new restroom building, landscaping, and a water feature. So those were the items specifically called out in the grant application. Although concept designs were completed back in 2019 as part of our original grant application and community engagement effort, more information and detail is now needed so that we can refine the designs and complete the construction documents. Earlier this year, we did solicit for these additional design services and through a competitive process selected the Melton Design Group. They have assisted us with completing additional community engagement efforts, or community engagement to solicit additional feedback and to refine the park designs. We've now had 2 public meetings this year and an online survey completed to date for feedback. And some of this was included in your agenda report, but in just a second, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Greg, who's going to walk you through in much more detail the feedback we've received and how the design has evolved so far. We are seeking input from the commission to help inform a final preliminary plan that we can begin to move forward with in more detail to get a lot more of the cost estimating and feasibility work done. And based on feedback received tonight and in conjunction with the public feedback received to date, we'll be moving forward with more detailed design work. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Greg, who will walk you through the design process.
So we are digital free, right? All right. You guys are looking at that, or do you have?
I'll be looking at both.
Okay,
This looks to be a little different, but it's nice to have both.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, your pamphlets are just some of the primary plans. So, thank you, Tracy. It's been great working with your staff. They've been, all of them, ones that aren't even here. Very, very quality group, and they've provided everything we've asked for at this point. So, it's been really good. I'm going to back up in history a little bit just so you can see where we've come. October 12th, we did our first public meeting, and we did have a lot of hot dogs there and people, and it was kind of a combo indoor-outdoor meeting, we had the park design outside on the park itself, and then we had the skate park design meeting in the building afterwards. We also had a QR code that attached you to back to the website. So we have a lot of outreach in addition to the original outreach for the grant, which was people had to get reminded about what they talked about at the grant time. So this meeting went off pretty darn good, I think. We got a lot of good input. This program you have, I believe, in your package on the left that we can't read, follows everything Tracy pretty much discussed with the grant. And we just took it to the next level as we refine our master plans. We always want to go to a way so we get more detail and detail. And so this was a graphic that just showed all the park elements that were being proposed. And then we did an option A and option B at that meeting. And we did get a lot of great comments. Let's see, do I want to? So both option A and option B looked at the park in a little different way. And primarily, you can see it's the pickleball courts that were next to the, there we go, next to the freeway on option A. And we really had a play and spray ground that was stretched out. And then the fields, we tried to maximize the amount of field space. And then as we went to option B, we moved the pickleball and basketball courts up into the corner and maximized the field space this way. And then again, stretched out the play and spray. Both of these had a new parking lot put in that you could drive through to get people off Evergreen Avenue. And in all these cases, the skate park was in this corner and has remained there due to the fact that we are now using this building as a shaded part of their skate park. Both these designs were looked at pretty closely. We walked all over the site and let me go back real quick. And we determined that we really didn't want play next to the skate park. We wanted to make sure we had separations. And we also discovered that the basketball court could stay right where it was, which is right next to the skate park, which you'll see in the next design. But we realized that, hey, we could reuse that slab and not have to spend money tearing it out and putting a brand new one in. So we'll just upgrade the slab we have. And it's good to have the skate park next to the basketball because it acts as kind of a buffer there also. We dove into a lot of details at this time. You know, we looked at our theming and things like that, and sustainability was a big part of the theming, along with the bus parking. We'll get into, the old bus yard that was here. So we wanted to start tying those elements in. And you can start seeing with the pollinator gardens we had in the park, we wanted to bring in some representations of that and the industrial feel of West Sac. So we just started bringing images to the public. The bus image showed up and everybody loved it. It was like people were at the meeting just putting tags all over this section of the bus. So we really related to that, and and a bunch of the other things that people tagged. So everything got talked about. We also brought in the health and wellness aspect of it. Parks are headed in a little bit different direction. The health and wellness, we're using them now from a designer standpoint as places we can send people to, feel better. Instead of just getting a prescription and going to the drugstore, doctors are now prescribing visits to parks. It's called Park RX. And so it's an exciting thing. So we've dived into that full-heartedly, and we wanted to provide a bunch of different elements that would affect all the senses and allow the park to be a location that doctors could literally send prescriptions to. So as a part of that, we analyzed where those elements would take place in a park, and this was kind of a active versus passive study. And you could see all the elements that were left on the left side of the drawing here, from urban forest, forest therapy, reflexology, the pollinators, arts, etc. And all those things have been proven to enhance the way of life. So your plan now represents a lot of those things, sustainability and health through both passive and active recreation. So just a quick bombshell. These are our boards we had up that meeting live with, you can see all the different call outs. They talked about A and B, more and more and more. And then we had, then we just summarized all those. We're not going to go through those, but we summarized it from the meeting. And we also had, you had your all staff meeting the next day. So we came and the whole staff was in the room. I think it was Oktoberfest day, right? So it was actually, it was great. And everybody really got engaged. Your homeless specialist, Aaron, I mean, he was great. We have, you know, issues on this park. So it was really good to talk a lot about that and how currently you guys are managing that with the park. So I can't wait to go back to the all staff meeting. It's a good one. So here we are, December 6th. We went through the meetings, and now we are taking it to the next level. So here is that last slide now really expanded. What was the West Acre Park site originally used for? Some people knew that in the meeting, but most people didn't know that it was a bus yard. And thus, we started coming up with those bus themes. Our mission and theme expanded, and you know, really wanted to go beyond just playgrounds and playfields. So we've expanded now into the focus of sustainability, wellness, and then the history of the park. This was received well at all the meetings, and the wellness and sustainability elements just kept growing and growing from a labyrinth that was added, interpretive panels. We also met with your staff and talked about how we're going to try to save a lot of water on this park. If you look at the plan, the green areas from that aerial photo to now are really reduced. So our turf is reduced quite a bit. We'll still have landscape and trees and shrubs, but we'll have less turf to mow, less turf to water. Again, the program just kept evolving, and then we ended up with option C. So option C looked at really expanding the parking lot to 70 spaces, realizing that now with new spray grounds, new playgrounds, 4 pickleball courts, and a skate park, that we were going to get a lot more visitors, and we didn't want to impact Evergreen Avenue more and more. So we looked at that, and we actually decided at that point that, and people in the audience, and that we were creating too much action in the center here with pickleball, basketball, spray, play, and soccer. And so it just felt overwhelming. We were trying to fit a lot of pieces in one spot. And so with that and talking about the parking lot, you could see that this center area was just impacted with uses. And so we kept drawing and designing, and we ended up looking at, I'm going through this because I wanted to get to option E. So option E just rearranged everything. Still had the same elements as option C, but gave us a lot more room and comfort in the middle, as this was just the spray and play now. And we're able to get some elevation change now that we had space. So we always want to provide our inclusive access to our playgrounds, but we didn't want to do that with a bunch of ramps. So we wanted to hide that and make it part of the design. So as you look at the bus concept here, there's a little wall in front of it, and there'll be an ADA access to the back of the bus where you'd actually climb in the bus. And then from that bus, someone who was in a wheelchair could come down a slide. They could swing, slide down a pipe, or they could just hang out in the bus. If they wanted to pull themselves to the top slide, they could do that. That's at about 14 to 16 feet up. So it's a really fun slide. But by moving the pickleball courts over towards Evergreen, we really made this a lot simpler. So there's a lot more just play and spray. We got group picnic areas in the orange. We got shade with trees. We have toddler inclusive play kind of on this side away from the basketball court, and then the more children's play closer to the basketball court. And we minimized the parking down to, I think, 56 spaces. so 14 spaces less, which allowed us to then open up pickleball and get 6 pickleball courts. If you've attended any of the meetings, the pickleball supporters are there every time. So, which is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful sport that's coming up. So we still got our field the same size. We added a little amphitheater option over on this side, which is a picnic area 99% of the time. And then when you want to have a neighborhood concert or an event or anything like that, you'll have a pavilion to do that in. The labyrinth is placed underneath those wonderful oak trees we have over there. So this is a little starting to get into the quiet part of the park. We go on to our little meditative nature walk, which is a gravel walk, and the pollinator gardens. And this is where we'll be bringing in the reflexology paths, interpretive panels. You'll learn why the forest is so healing. You'll learn when you walk on these stones what that does to all the nerve endings on the bottom of your feet. There'll be these QR codes that tell you all these elements along with interpretive panels. So with this design E, we resolved that it was the best layout for the park. We did do a count last night at the meeting, and everybody raised their hands on which they liked, C or E, and E was decided that they the audience at that point liked E best. And Don, we did show the backstop now, as of 24 hours ago, right? So we're able to do a backstop, and I think we'll be able to do a small dirt area just inside the backstop for a home base, because I know it's going to turn to dirt anyway. So I think we can have that off the soccer field, but still very manageable for any recreation play there. Going into some enlargements so we can look at this a little closer. This blue building is our centrally located restroom. It'll have 2 unisex toilets in it, along with a full pump house that needs to be close to the spray ground. So we won't be putting equipment underground, difficult for maintenance. It'll be in a sub-building next to the restrooms themselves inside this blue building. And it's within an allowable distance, so my pipe sizing and everything could stay the standard sizes. And then we're adding to it a little structure that would provide shade. So using the restroom structure itself to help us provide another group picnic area without having to do all the other elements to get one. And then the spray ground on both sides will have rentable birthday shade structures. So if you want to program that out, you can do that. The playground's an industrial design for the water. We'll have water jets coming out of manholes, out of sewer pipes. It'll look like a lot of public works piping and things like that with water shooting out of it. So it kind of blends into our theme. On the left side here, we have our inclusive spinner. So a wheelchair can actually get in there, and it's like the teacups, Disneyland, if you haven't been there. So the person in the wheelchair can manipulate the whole thing, or his friends and family. Click happy here. We got swings and slides over on this side. Here's our bus playground, and then a large spinner on this side. And it all has intermingled with different planters. So it's not just one big, massive rubber slab. We have trees and rocks and logs all around it. And then you can see how we relate to the basketball court, and there's some seating for the people and spectators of basketball on each side, and then the skate. Here's an enlargement of those play elements. Again, we'll have a little bit of a retaining wall that the bus will be shooting out of. It's kind of as if the bus is now coming out of the ground. It'll have vines and things like that made on it. They'll be synthetic. They won't be real vines. And the bus itself has all your typical slides and towers, and the bus will be made out of steel panels. It won't be a real bus. But once you get into the bus, you'll be able to slide out of it. You'll be able to look out windows. As you get to the front, the floor disappears and it turns into an open net. So there's little like 8-inch squares, so you'll be able to look down on your friends and or grab the fire pole and slide out of it. Not a real bus. but it's going to look like a Washington Unified School Bus. So you can see the elements. We're capturing some optical illusions we want to put into the rubber. So as you come off the tube slide, it looks like you're coming out of a pipe, you know, and then we have our spray ground that has the same pipe theme. So they're integrated, the playgrounds. We'll have a climbing wall on this retaining wall in the back. So you'll actually have climbing holds. The top of the bus will have little transparent windows in it, and it'll also be perforated to water will get into the bus. So you really can't go into the bus and sleep on a rainy night. It won't be comfortable. And with the bottom open, it won't be comfortable, very to sleep on. So we're trying to accompany all those things. And then the top tower looks like it's a big, what's that? I mean, the guy who climbs the
Tarzan.
That'll work. But so big leaves on top, right? So it's a little bit cartoonish and fun, not individual tree leaves, but big monster leaves to create the shade for over the playground. So a unique custom piece of equipment, more expensive than a normal catalog purchase, but providing a lot of fun elements. And I imagine there'll be a lot of photographs taken in front of that bus. Just to get onto this, whoops, one too far. This is a section from the parking lot. You can see the restroom. We'll have a big sliding door to get in and out of the pump house there. Well, they'll bring in materials. There'll also be storage in this area. And then an extended roof. And then there's our spray ground over to the playground. And then there's our highway there. So as you cut through the site, there's some contours. It's no longer just a complete flat site. And then on the bottom, I wanted to show you the pickleball field. So here's our local residential house against the pickleball side. Their fence, we are going to be planting a screen of shrubs and trees there. We have large trees already existing there. And then we'll start the pickleball courts. And of last night, if you look at all those stickers, they want to have a wall ball to hit the ball against while they're waiting and playing. So that also doubles as a sound barrier. So it's, why did I think of that? But a really good idea. So against that last pickleball court, we'll have a wall ball to hit up against. So while you're waiting, you'll be able to warm up and at the same time reduce the sound of the pickleball to the neighbors. So there's our pickleball courts. That sound wall will go on this end of the court. Our kiosk will be here. We'll have a new trash enclosure. And then this is our labyrinth underneath those big oaks. Our field space, we checked and met with everybody that the 180 wide by 300 long matches what they have pretty much today. So that'll work out fine with them. Little play area up here, and then just some benches to watch pickleball. And the pickleball courts, along with the skate park and the basketball court, will be lighted or lit. You've seen that one already. Diving into the skate park design real quick. So Spawn Ranch is our skate park designers. They were here yesterday. They've come up with two options. I will dive into those. They are shown over one of the older master plans. So the basketball court is the same on all of them, so just do not pay attention to the left of that. So you can see that our building that's existing is on the far right side, and then the skate park engages into that. The grant requires us to have a skate park and a pump track, and instead of creating two separate elements, we wanted to make them one. So we integrated the pump track into the skateboard all-wheel track because it works that way. Skaters, bikers, scooters all play together, sometimes nicely, sometimes not, but they all work together. And so I'm going to go through these real quick. Concept A kind of lays it all out for you. The covered area is on top of the page. We'll have a maintenance building on that corner. 20 feet of the building will be kept for maintenance. And then this is the corner of West Acre and Evergreen. We have entry, a big wall ride here, which doubles as a sign on the other side. So as people come by, we may have to lower that a little bit for line of sight on that corner. So Public Works won't like that once they see it. So we'll lower that a little bit. And then you come across the flat area and then drop into what's kind of a bowl / street area, grinding rails, other grinding rails. And then we have a elevated back of a berm on this side that will also double as a signage along that face. So as you pull in or leave, you'll have signage right there for the park. You get up on the upper section, this abuts up to the basketball courts. More quarter pipes, ramps, staging areas, so you just go back and forth here all day long, if that's what you like. More of a street area. And then all this acts as part of the pump track. So here's some real pumping. You can use the sidewalls. You can jump over this. You can come into this area. You can loop around. We're going to kind of discourage them riding right into the building. So there'll be another element here that directs them back into the park. And then said a biker, if he's pumping, he could pump both sides of these walls, that centerpiece, get up here, go up this one, and then he's back into the loop. So it acts as a modified pump track if you've seen the dirt ones out there, which are just hump after hump after hump, which I think this is a good option going for that approach. There's a little different angle of it from Evergreen. We do have a bowl in the center that's a 4 foot and I think 7 foot or 6 foot bowl in the very middle of the park. This is our building outline. You see it a little bit darker. So we've done 2 options of the skate park. Second option has some similar elements in this corner. Except here, instead of going down, they went up. And then instead of integrating the pump track into it, they went with a design that's more standard. A little repetitious on the pumps. So we've had that discussion, and the skaters and bikers talked about that. That gets you back to the middle and then over here. So this option, it was hard to tell at yesterday's meeting. I think the option C that comes out is going to be a blend of the two. So everybody had their likes. They really discussed about them all. And I think Aaron Spahn went away with a lot of good information to come back with a whole new version. Yeah, Don? Yeah, they were proposing synthetic turf in that space. And at this point, I told them, I really don't want to have to maintain synthetic turf next to the pump track. And I'm sure no one wants to maintain that. But, it wastes space because now the skaters can't really roll on that. Everybody else can. But the skaters like the pump tracks just as much as the bikes do. So, we kind of leaned towards away from doing a separate turf and pump track to blend it back in like the other option. Again, they took a lot from both of these, and we brought that to this meeting that we just had last night. So this was our flyer we had out there. There was some great hot chocolate and cookies for everybody. Christmas was abound. We presented the plan to everybody, and the skaters really, they just got up and started pointing at the screen. They really had a great engagement. If you were there, you saw it. It was pretty fun to watch. Aaron was overwhelmed. They just had so many ideas. He couldn't write fast enough. Sarah in my office was taking a million notes, so it was really good. While that was going on, I was just getting bombarded with a bunch of ideas in the back of the room. And I think there was just a lot of great discussion about more fine-tuning of option E than anything. That's where the wall came up. People didn't want the big parking lot because it felt too big. So at the end of the night, option E got, like I said, got kind of the thumbs up. I did want to pull up some things to you guys because this is the red circles that you see currently at the budget we have. We're looking at, okay, we're over a budget a little bit and we need to adjust. So the way we typically adjust is either you remove something, I think it's the last page in your booklet, or we make things smaller or not quite as custom. So the you know, we looked at elements that were not in the grant, like this play yard over here. We looked at the labyrinth and the amphitheater, both not in the grant. The reflexology trails and experiential trails were not in the grant. The spray ground and the adventure playground, no one visualized a bus when this grant was being created. So we may need to scale the bus down a little bit to help make budget, but still get the impact of it, right? So it may be just a little smaller, a little lower. And again, this is all depending on whether we, what kind of bids we get when we do go out to bid. So there's still a little time for that. We are seeing pricing kind of a little bit dropping on some things. Electrical is still really high and crazy. And we hope that gets under control before now. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention as we take this option and all the comments we'll get tonight and the comments we got last night, and we'll come back to you with some budget, and we'll have that discussion a little further at that point. So I think that wraps up my discussion at this point. We're, again, a lot of great public input, and there are always new people at every meeting, and that was the great part about it. Last night we had 2 or 3, 4 more people come that you get worried when they haven't seen it before, and they go, well, you know, but they all had good ideas. So I'd love to answer any of your questions now.
And if I can add one thing that might not be apparent to everyone, that this would be the first time we are able to offer free publicly accessible pickleball courts. Now there could be some fees associated with, you know, some use, but we don't have any in the city at all. And as we're looking at some of these amenities, while they might be more expensive, some of them also have the ability to generate revenue to help offset ongoing operational costs. So expanding the pickleball courts from a few to as many as you see here actually gives us opportunity for some league and tournament play that generates revenue. Having lighting helps us to expand recreation opportunities, to encourage activities for extended periods of time, but also for rentals that can generate revenue. So we are trying to look at opportunities to help us manage the ongoing costs of having a park like this. But it's really exciting that there's this opportunity to expand what we originally conceptualized into something that's offering so much more. It's just really exciting to see the plan evolve. Thank you.
Thank you. So I was going to say, I'm sure we all have a lot to say. So I was just wondering, maybe we should just go just left to right down the end. I'll go last. Does that work for everybody? Okay. You want to start?
Okay, thanks. I will try to make it short, but everybody knows I get very excited about these things. First of all, congratulations to the staff and to the consultants. This is a really exciting plan. And I personally love the way that it has integrated the sustainability and health aspect of recreation, and also that we have a plan that is serving multiple populations within our community, can access sites with functional needs and people of all ages. So I really appreciate that. If anybody's been paying attention for the last 4 years, and Tracy pointed out, I've been asking for a labyrinth in West Sacramento forever.
Susan's the famous labyrinth
I am the
commissioner.
famous labyrinth person. And I'm excited to see it here. I'm not excited to see the red circle. But so what I would add along those lines, and I know that, I mean, I get it, I get budget, but I would point out that it is one of the amenities that can be used by people of all ages, including seniors and folks with functional needs. So I hope that it can be preserved and potentially, because of the access that it will provide, there may be some funding streams that are specifically dedicated to serving those populations that might be tapped into in order to support it as an amenity for a livable community. So just wanted to present that. The other thing that I wanted to say, and then I'll be quiet, is I'm really happy that you have, well, no, I have two more things to say. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm really happy that you've incorporated the industrial aspects of our city in the park, because one of the things I love about West Sacramento is that there are elements of everything that is required to make our social and qualitative life exist. We have a port here, we have warehouses, we have industry, we have trucking, we have things that really allow us to integrate the various aspects of life into one place and for us to be aware of them. Whereas historically in urban development, you have, or suburban development, you have, a nice place to live, and then all the other stuff is put over someplace else. Right. And usually that is closer to disadvantaged communities and people that, don't have access to the same resources that we have. So the fact that we are in a community that is integrating those in a complementary way and embracing them as part of our heritage and legacy as a city, I think is really important. And it makes, I think, West Sacramento an especially unique place to say. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that one of my concerns or comments is that we are next to a freeway and there will be a lot of aerobic activity occurring in the park. And so I was wondering what kinds of decisions are being made about the plantings and elevations, et cetera, that can either operate as a filter or a barrier to toxic emissions from the freeway. Right. And I did have one more. If we get the bus, I'd love to see it be an EV bus that has the EV insignia.
We can do that. We can put solar panels on it too.
Okay, super. And that's it. Honestly, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Do you want to?
Yeah, quick on everything's great. I'm glad I think the theming was super important, and every park should have that, But the CO2, we call it a CO2 plume when we're next to a boulevard or a highway, and you can kind of visualize, usually plumes are underground. Well, you can kind of visualize it coming. So we're going to try to maximize that existing wall of trees. There's a lot of gaps there. And so we're going to try to come into that space and up the quantity of trees, pick trees that do sequester as much carbon as possible. We talked about biochar earlier today, so we're going to be incorporating that into parts of the plantings. Biochar is a product that turns your ground soils into a more sequestering space and richens your soil instead of using fertilizers all the time. Your turf alone sequesters carbon. So the more healthy our turf field is by amending that soil and making it super healthy, then that'll be we'll fight that CO2 as much as we can based on fighting the car. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Thanks. I'm going to just say ditto to whatever Susan said for the sake of time. I feel it all, so thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Yeah, it's super exciting for me as well. I've been on this commission for a few years, and I think after the parks, the survey, this really kind of, I think, encompasses a lot of the elements that came about from people's responses. So it's nice to see it kind of come together in a park one day. With that being said, I like what Tracy you said about this generating revenue because of the usage of like the play fields. I coach soccer. My family's crazy about soccer, World Cup, etc. So, and I lived on Poplar. So this was my like home park for a little while, and I've seen the usage that it gets in the community. And I would love to try to see if we can incorporate futsal or into the pickleball. I know you circled to the courts. I don't know what that specifically means, but I know that as a youth coach here, one of the things and you mentioned lighting as well, one of the things we struggle with is finding a place to practice when the time changes in the fall. And a lot of us are cramming into La5, which, I mean, I love to support local business, absolutely, but they are getting impacted from Davis, from Elk Grove. And so even West Sac residents have a hard time finding indoor courts at a business. So and then the other alternative place to go to is to go to Natomas or Rancho Cordova. So, and I've seen a few places that have a pickleball/futsal element to them. So if there's a way to incorporate that and to rent them out for a fee, I think that you would find the clubs here would be happy to pay that as a way to offset, the budget shortfall here. As a mother, as you saw, I had my 3-year-old in my lap with me. And I'm saying this, I don't know what your folks were saying when they were coming to the meetings, but I'm not a big fan of plot play areas. I don't see them being used by preschoolers. Mm-hmm. I think they're cute. I'm thinking about like Southside Park in a downtown area, and my oldest is now 14. And that little tot area is cute. It's close to the water, but we would never really use it. Like I would sit there and he would run to the big kids area. So like This place always seemed like it was like a nice idea, but I'm like, if this is an issue of budget, I'm like, by all means, as a mother of like a preschooler, I'm telling you that like you could use that space for something else, because guaranteed those toddlers are going to go to the big kids area, especially with the bus and the splash pad features. So
that's a big challenge. And the parks world always says 2 to 5, 5 to 12, 2 to 5, 5 to 12. Well, we know 2 to 5s are with the 5 to 12s, right behind them, right?
Right.
Always behind them. So I think in this case, I'm not specifically doing a toddler structure. The spinners, the swings, and the big structure itself will have that 2 to 5, but it's not a separate entity. Right. The top play over by the pickleball courts are just primarily for like when your child are just starting to walk, and they can like put their hands on a log and then do small little things. So
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that even when they're that little, they stick around for maybe 5 minutes, and if they're mobile, they'll just move on. And I see more use out of that experiential trail as a way to incorporate little people where they can be safe and they can have this moment where their sensory is a big thing at that age.
Yeah.
So that if you wanted to incorporate those two things into one, that's what I would want as a parent.
Thank you.
And I lived in Poplar, I lived over at Laurel, and so this is was up until recently kind of like my home park. And for years, people always wanted a splash area. So to see that circled is like, oh, that's kind of scares me, because that's something that people, at least in my neighborhood, really wanted, was because the only other alternative was to go to Bridgeway, other side of town. And I think there was some talk about having one at Bright or something, but that is a huge draw. And my son's preschool is just right across the street, catty corner at Yola Education Center. So that park, seeing this, it's generated a lot of excitement from the parents of young children to have a splash pad there. So if there's a way to like prioritize that, I just put a bunch of like plus signs next to it.
You are doing that right now.
Yeah, so. Yeah, right. And of course, I love the bus idea. My question about that was if there's going to be QR codes at the playground for parents to teach their children. Like I lived here for 12, 13 years. I didn't know that was a bus yard. So to be able to like educate yourself about the history of the city would be
everything
nice.
From her industrial to that to the next one will all have an interpretive panel.
Awesome.
So, or one grand interpretive panel that kind of explains it.
Okay. And then, and I was wondering, and I know this is still the design phase of it, but I would love to find out what would be the proposed types of like trees and shrubs that are going to be going in, and then what the alternatives would be if those things are not available. Because as I learned from Jason, thank you so much from teaching me about these things, is that, you have you plan for something, and then by the time you get the money and you start construction, things are out of stock. Right. So what's going to be the alternative that goes in if that's not available? I would love to find out more about that.
Good idea.
Yeah. I think those are, sorry, like, it's hard to have a presentation, all these things come to your mind, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I go through everything. And I was wondering, when you had folks come in last night, was there, I went to the October 12th meeting. I wasn't able to go last night, unfortunately, but how do residents feel about, for instance, having lighting next to the street? That's something I'm totally fine with, but I don't live there. I was just wondering if that's an issue at all for folks, or like a noise thing.
That's a good question. I mean, last night, I don't think we had a neighbor from right across the street there. But the previous meetings we did, and at that point, one of their biggest comments was all about security. So they were almost welcoming the lights.
Awesome. Yeah.
Which will be on the paths as security lights, and then till 10 o'clock on the timer light.
Okay.
So there was, the good thing, as I explained to them, is when you look at a 14-foot light or so, or an 18-foot light, and you look at our tree canopy, we do enclose that park pretty well with the canopies that we have as far as lights directly at them. There'll be a glow, but we can even, to get more trees for the CO2, we can even add to that around those elements to make sure that, when our older trees die, we have younger trees that are there.
Yeah. And on the note about lighting, will there be lighting including in the amphitheater design?
The amphitheater is more of a passive amphitheater, so there'll be power there for use as needed, but there won't be like lighting for the amphitheater bandstand. No, that would have to be something you bring in for that event.
Got it. And same goes, I'm assuming, for the parking lot, there'll be lighting as well.
Yeah, there is parking lot lighting.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have for now. And I think everything is great. So
great.
I understand what has been said about like having so much and all that, but I think you all really thought through about some of the maintenance and the issues that come as you incorporate these elements. So, but yeah, I think, and then one thing you noted was, I don't know if I missed this during the presentation, was but the experiential trail about how it might serve as like a public health, like a prescription drug alternative.
Right.
Is there, as far as like, it's circled in red, and as far as like funding and stuff goes, is there a way we could, get additional dollars from local like healthcare providers like UC Davis or Kaiser to
I think now that we have a plan and we can put something in front of these organizations, I think, we could get those funded separately from the grant.
Yeah, and I would, and with that in the future, if I'm hoping and that this comes to fruition, working with kids. I don't specifically work with kids, but because I have kids, I'm involved with their education. It would be great to have this shown as a resource for the community to say, like, your kids have, they're neurodivergent and they need a place to like in a park to play. Because this one thing I love about it is it's so inclusive of folks with different abilities. Is that this trail isn't just for older folks who need a place to go and like, work on their anxiety. It's also good for kids who might have like, neuroprocessing disorders, whatever. And I think that I know this is more for all of our parks, but as an amenity that's listed as when we go to the park website to say, like, if your kid needs to like go and calm down, this is where they can do that.
No, that's great. We can put that on the website and make our own RX.
Yeah, exactly.
For people just visiting your web.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schatzel? Thank you. I heard something this weekend that maybe everybody else has heard. I haven't heard it before, but it applies to this. Sitting is the new smoking.
Oh, interesting.
I have not heard that before, and so sitting is the new smoke. I don't smoke, but I sit a lot. So. I have smaller comments, and then they broaden out. At the two meetings we went to at the park, you touched on the play area, the spray area being recycled water. I was really happy to hear that. I'm a little tired of residents being told save water, and yet we build thousands of houses. It's not making sense to me. So I'm glad that we're recycling the water there. When I was talking to the skateboard people last night, I was stunned that they actually want to get along with the bike people. It's the opposite. I mean, forever I've heard, why are bikes in the skateboard park, But they actually seem to want to coexist, which I thought was a good thing and was healthy. So I was happy to hear that last night. Basketball court, I'm glad you moved it away from the houses. We've experienced the constant bouncing of the basketball drive residents. Wonk.
Yeah.
So it's good that you moved it away from the houses. You're saving the oak trees, although I understand we're losing one of the oak trees. Did I hear that right? Maybe two, because they've got to be, 100 years old? I mean, they're pretty phenomenal.
At least, yeah.
Then the other thing is, and Commissioner Ahmad touched on it too, because we've talked about the maintenance here before. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a Rotary meeting and the police chief was talking about the resources they need in police. Every time he mentioned police, you could have replaced it with park maintenance, and it would have been Jason's president. I mean, it was remarkable, you know. So we're looking at this again within the lens of Heritage Oaks Park and the conversations we've had in the past about we're putting a lot of stuff in here, all good stuff, great stuff, but you know, on the same record I played with Heritage Oaks. I'm sorry, but when this comes back, can we get an estimate of maintenance cost compared to an estimate for Heritage Oaks compared to what we're actually spending on Lopes? There shouldn't be a whole lot of time. Compare real today, because this is cool. I mean, it's terrific in so many ways, but every time you do a pickleball tournament, somebody's got to dump the garbage. Somebody's got to clean the courts, you know. So it's like, you know, now, and Ernie knows, Ernie, way back when we were doing softball. Commissioner Ahmad may know this too. Westfield, in the staff report, there's an exhibit on parks in the neighborhood related to West Acre that staff provided. Westfield Park used to have 2 girls' softball fields with skinned dirt infield. And somewhere between Don and Tracy, they were eliminated for a playground. That's out there now, the really big one and the large open grass. So you can imagine softball, and as of 2 months ago, I became the vice president of West Sac girls softball. They see West Acre and they think, yay, we can replace the softball fields, at least one that they took out at Westfield. And so that's the first thing they thought of, and that's why I keep bringing up softball and lights. And there's room here. And I went out to Westfield Monday morning, and the grass is, well, you live there. You're there more than me, but there's a lot of room out there for soccer. So I'm not suggesting we eliminate the soccer field at all, but there's room to shrink it to accommodate a softball field where we used to have 2. Now there's zip, and there's, with respect, we have no pickleball, absolutely, but there's no girls softball fields south of West Capitol Avenue except the high school, but that costs money to use. So when the softball people took a look at this, we thought, hey, here's a chance, and especially if we can light it, but we talked about it last night, that if we get to that point, we're going to need non-grant funds to light it, because the grant funds are all dialed in on this project, you know. But then we talked about more lighting being more security, and the neighbors seem to be happy about that. The pickleball lighting, the skateboard lighting, softball field lighting. This was more security for the whole park. I think that's it. That was really it. But maintenance, again, I keep coming back. I mean, it's a lot of great stuff, but, you know.
As a part of, as we get into later parts of the design and we started establishing everything, we'll be looking at a life cycle maintenance cost as part of our exhibit to you.
Sure.
So you'll not only just look at what it costs annually, but a 30-year life cycle cost. So when do we have to replace the slides? So you have that in your capital budgets, you know, work 30 years out. So it's already sitting there. Replace the slide 12 years from now.
Yeah, great, thank you. But I like it. I'm bummed it's not a real bus.
We can just take the sides off of some of the real buses. And
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Tom.
Commissioner Castro.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it brief because they covered pretty much everything. But I love seeing the development from between the last meeting and this meeting, and there was a lot of engagement. So you guys did like a great job with having the community come in and give their input, and then to implement it in the plan. So thank you for that. I know, was it Sarah last night? She was able to give a lot of information to somebody that I brought to the meeting, so I was really happy about that. And so I wanted to thank her, but I don't see her here. So.
Shout out to Sarah. She's watching.
I also agree, like, I don't, with Commissioner Ahmad, the top play area, I don't know that, I agree with her on that. That's just my 2 cents for that. But I did want to know about the noise factor. I know the neighbors they were okay with the lights, but were they okay with the noise?
You guys remember anything specifically?
I mean, there were maybe a few comments about the programming, and I mean that the park right now has a lot of activity. So, and I mean, the park's been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of different programmed activities in the park. So, you know, there is certainly an element of noise now, and there has been for some time. The only new use that generates a different kind of noise than has been there previously is the pickleball courts. And, you know, there is a noise associated with pickleball. There's a noise associated with basketball. There's a noise associated with, you know, a skate park. And it's, you know, it's just part of being a park site. And we limit hours of operation to help minimize impacts.
And I think we kind of took the worst of all evils. We didn't want a skate park over here, because that would be loud, longer, and clickety-clackety. And between basketball and skate, those are two of the most loudest activities in recreation, you know. So, like I said, to put all the elements in, I think this rebound / sound wall could prove to be a helpful element.
If I may, having coached soccer out there too, you know, it's the noisiest thing is the highway.
Oh, no, absolutely.
It's not all the people using the park, it's the highway.
I would go to Caltrans and have them raise that wall 10 feet.
Okay, thank you. I do like that the pickleball area is closer to the street and the parking, because it did seem a little overwhelming, being with all the other, like the play structure and basketball and all the other stuff. So, and then I do hope that you can keep some of the original, like the bus concept, because it is a part of the history. So, I'm hoping you can find a way around that. But I looked into the Park RX, and I also like that new way of health and wellness. So I would really, really hate to see that. So I hope the suggestion by Commissioner Ahmad can be used to find additional funds from other entities. So I think beyond that, again, you guys did a great job with engaging the public. And then I know there was a lot of feedback on social media, and then people that I had talked to just by word of mouth going to different city events. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Castro, our Vice Chair.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who went before for saying all the smart things first. So I just follow in your shadows. I love how fun and playful this is. And you know, like a few of my colleagues here, I've got a little one who runs around and doesn't believe he's actually as old as he is. He thinks he's a lot older. So I have to say I agree 100% with the questions about a taught play area and whether that really works the way it's intended to. I know that my guy was going on the big slides as soon as he could take a big enough step to go up. So if something has to go, my personal vote is that one. I was happy to hear that the splash pad is going to use recycled water. I'd like to know a little bit more about what that means. Is it being used to water the actual park?
No, it's 100% like a pool system. So it has all the filtration systems in our pool house right there, which is part of the restroom. So maintenance will be able to just pull right up, take water samples right there and make sure that it's it. If we do have an event where, a dirty diaper ends up on the ground or swim diaper or something like that, there is a shutdown policy. Thank God we have the bus and other things to play on for the time it takes to reflush that and recirculate that water. Fully recirculating. And there's a couple different systems. We'll be talking about those real soon and get down to the right one for you guys. And we lose water to evaporation and then whatever goes off on the kids' clothes.
Yep. Well, that's very nice to hear. You know, I think we had a little bit of a conversation earlier about you know, CO2 emissions and the impact of, you know, any carbon plumes, as you were saying, coming off of the freeway. I just think it's always important to remember water's after that equation. So I'm happy to hear that. Let's see. I haven't heard anybody else voice how excited they are for a pump track and a skate park, and I'll just say I love it. I grew up in the 90s, and we always were saying build more skate parks, and I always thought, why would a city do that? And now the attitude has definitely shifted. I think it's an important way to think about, you know, not just I think there's a judgment that we were tied to it, where, you know, we didn't want those kids, and I think that's the wrong way to think about it. It's those kids are our kids. And, we've got to give them an opportunity to play just like we would give anybody else an opportunity to play. And I think it's good to build something for those kids, because there are. So I'm happy to see that. I'm happy that, you know, there's been so much engagement about that, and so much incorporation of the feedback from the biker and skater community. And so great work on that. If I had any other of my notes, as I kept flipping through pages, I was just scribbling. So multiple pages with, I think I'm trying to find. I guess one of my last thoughts is on the bus. Whatever you do, don't get rid of the bus. Okay. Obviously, that's going to bring people in it. It's such a cool concept, and everybody's on board. Right. I have a friend who just bought a used school bus and turned it into his camper van. Okay. Apparently, they're really affordable. I don't know if they're built the way you need them to be built, but yeah, there's not a huge market for a 20-year-old decommissioned school bus. There isn't, but there's a huge market to try to repurpose one into a playground. Yeah, I thought it might be a little pricey. Yeah, I heard the new tires on an old school bus are probably more expensive than the bus. But, right. But, you know, just getting toxic awareness of what those tires probably are made of and release would be. Yeah, for another commission. Been down that road once. So, you know, I think in the end, I really like where you've landed. I think, you know, any concerns I would have had early on, it looks like you guys anticipated those and you got them. You know, I might have worried about the density, and you guys, no, we've thought about that. Yeah. You know, thinking about the fact that it looks like it's covered in parking spaces, you're like, no, let's take out 20. We don't need it. There you go. And, you know, I really appreciate that all the thought and all the engagement that's gone into I'm excited to see it, you know, actually break ground.
Thank you. Okay.
You get the fun last.
Yeah, I turn. So this is one of the things I love about the Parks Commission, is I think it's just a great group of people with great ideas, and you get to be a part of something like this, you know, which is essentially, you know, a signature, you know, like a unique signature for the city of West Sacramento, and you get to be a part of that. So I agree with what all the other commissioners have said. There's not anything that I don't agree with them on. I have some of my own thoughts on it. You know, first of all, wonderful job. I think this is a great use of this space. Parks are always fun. It's always fun to look at them, and I think you've done a wonderful job in the design. I have some questions and then a little bit of feedback. Did I hear you mention something about a backstop near the soccer field? I didn't quite catch that. Yeah, in the far bottom corner where the circle is. Currently, there's a backstop on the other side, right in the middle of the park. It's kind of run down and the wood's breaking. So we are going to put another backstop where the red circle is down there. Down on the bottom left? Bottom left, outside of the soccer field. Because if I understand it, there's a gentleman that every morning goes out there and hits balls for the fun of it. There's several of them. But, you know, our goal is to make it something that you could practice on, you know, and go out and have a backstop when you're pitching. It's really a pain if you don't. Right. And so we'll be able to fit a backstop into that corner. It'll be a chain link backstop, just simple, small, nothing huge.
and it's hitting the right direction. You almost have 200 feet on the shortest side towards the labyrinth. So 200 feet's a good hit for a good softball player. So we'll have that there, and they'll be usable for practice. Like I said, I'm going to probably get a nice little dirt area for home plate, just because I know it's going to turn into a maintenance problem if we don't, if we try to leave it in grass. So we'll make that fit for Don and the softballers.
Okay, fantastic.
And other ballers.
And then I also just some clarification on the bus enclosure itself. I know you said that it would be open, so it wouldn't be a weather area, but it sounds like some thought has been put into like after hour H&S type, or sorry, health and safety type issues with an enclosure like that.
Right.
So I guess there is some concern, and I don't mean to kind of be a downer here, but people do, strange things at night, and if you give them a space to do it in, that would be one of my concerns, if it could be secured or if it would be open enough that it would not be usable, because it's a fantastic idea. I would hate to see it be ruined.
I think there's some options we can look at as we get into our design development of maybe the back doors do close, so you either have to climb up a slide or, climb up a fire pole to get there. We can definitely make it simple to do. We got, we're going to close the gates to the pickleball place, so someone's going to be there. But it's a battle we fight. And if you have a playground tower, who's sleeping up on that second floor? It's really hard as designers or even park people to fight this battle. But we can do what we can to make it not easy.
Yeah, it's impossible to completely eliminate it, and you can't predict the future on what people are going to do. But it sounds like you're at least putting some thought into that. I would hate to see a child get hurt or something if something left over or whatever. So that's good to hear about that. Regarding the skate park, the watershed plan for it looks like it would, since it's mostly concrete, at least in the design, and there's so many bowls and dips and valleys in that park. I know we don't get a ton of rain. I'm hoping that changes. It sounds like it's going to this week. But it sounds like with the amount of trees that are being planned, especially for the carbon emission discussions that we had, leaf drop into an area like that could get easily clogged and backed up. So to Commissioner Schatzel's point, that could be another maintenance issue that may not have been considered in terms of clearing those drains out or having some sort of plan for the water collection in the winter months.
Right. The great thing about skateboarders and bikers, they bring their own brooms. Right? We talked about it last night. They really wanted a tree right in the middle of that park. If you look at the design, there's one with the volcano element. They want a tree right in the middle because it's no fun skating in 100-degree weather, right? And they're okay with leaves. They know they have to deal with them. They go, one of them says, dudes, we're adults. We can bring our electric-powered blowers. And I'm going, it's that easy, guys.
Yeah,
just bring your little blower. And we half the park will get rained on by the existing oaks that are already in the Caltrans right-of-way. So, that whole bottom side's going to get shade in the afternoon and leaves blowing into it. It isn't optimum, but the drains themselves, they only have tiny little 1/4-inch openings. They use those Zern drains like you see in showers because the skaters have to ride over. It's not big grates. So the leaves rarely ever get into the actual catch basin. And then if they do, the maintenance can just screw those, pull them out, and once a year clean out the drains. Our storm drain system is across the back of the park and runs into West Acre. So all that skate park will drain. We'll have filtration elements underneath it that will cover our first flush lid requirements from Public Works. And then from there, it'll drain over to the storm drain, which goes out to West Acre. So there's, we even saw it yesterday, that big DI in the ground back at the back of the property line right below the building. So.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so just a little bit of brief feedback. So I wanted to say about this park, one of the things, and I've been in West Sacramento for, 22 years now, I think. So I know I'm not a lifelong, but I've been here a long time. And I've seen the city change and in so many great ways. And what my favorite pieces of the growth of the city are the unique elements that come to West Sacramento. Things that don't exist everywhere. Things that are give the city character. and bring people from across the river or from the north, the south, the west, whatever. They come to West Sacramento for Rayleigh Field, for Treetop Sack, for, you know, all these unique elements that are part of this great commission and part of this great city and part of the great staff that we have. And I see, when I see this plan, I see the uniqueness in this park. And the bus is one of them, the bus playground. I've never seen really anything like that before, and it ties directly into the history of the city. So I think that's a fantastic element. And then this trail and the plan for the benefits, the good benefits that come from this type of trail, you don't see that very often in parks and cities and things like that. So what I see here is a beautifully drawn plan. The red circles, I mean, nobody wants to see those, right? So some of my thoughts on that, if you have to choose, and I'm not saying that I don't want any of this stuff.
Sure.
But I'm saying if it comes down to a dollars and cents issue, which it always does, it has to. You know, the splash park is wonderful, but we do have one of those. We already have a splash park, and it's at the Bridgeway Island Boathouse. I'm not saying I don't want the splash park. Okay, I just want to be very clear. I think it's a fantastic thing. I'm just saying that we have one. If it comes down to that, or the bus playground, or the pickleball courts, or things like that, that we don't have. That's my point. I guess I'm trying to make is I would rather us eliminate multiple things that already exist and bring in things that don't exist for now.
And the red circle doesn't necessarily mean eliminate. It means maybe we don't have the super custom water.
Right.
It'll be reduced down. The water is going to be great, as you know, having kids. So maybe it's still there, but not in the grandest form that I would love.
Sure, sure. And like I said, I think more splash parks, the better. But if it comes down to, you know, the bus structure or the pickleball courts, you know, things like that, that's just, again, it's just an opinion, just a thought to consider. The other thing that I wrote was the presence of the amphitheater, I think, is great. We don't have one of those. You know, we really don't have that in the city, a place for, you know, small clubs or things to perform, whether it's music or it's youth drama club or, you know, plays in the park and things like that. I think that is one of the unique things that we don't have in the city. Really, I don't know the scale. It's hard to tell the size of it, if it, you know, what would accommodate, but anything that it can accommodate to me is a plus. My concern is that it's a little bit close to the soccer fields and the sports fields, and that any sort of Saturday afternoon play during the middle of a soccer tournament or something like that could get really drowned out the, you know, any sort of effort that somebody made to put on it.
It's a programming thing at that point.
Right, so. Right. So, you know, if there's a way to incorporate that somewhere in, you know, closer to where the play areas are, or if the splash park becomes scaled down, you know, maybe having it somewhere in that area where it's close to children playing, and if they get bored watching whatever they're watching, they run off and they play in the bus, you know, something to that effect. It just seems like it's a little bit far away. The labyrinth, again, you know, it's kind of incorporated into the trail, which I think is great. So you can kind of go and finish up and do that. But the amphitheater was kind of what stuck out in my mind. Okay. I agree about the top play area. I don't, I mean, I have kids, but it's been a while since they've been tots. But I also feel like that is a little bit far away from the play area. And if you had, like a lot of families do, children of different ages, it would be, I think, difficult to have, you know, a 18-month-old and a 4-year-old focused in the same area where you want to watch over and make sure, you know. So if that stays, I think it should be incorporated into the play area where it's just all kind of in the same area where you can sit back, relax, and watch your toddler, you know, learn how to walk. And then you also have got your older children or whatever, you know, playing on the bus. So that one seemed a little bit out of sorts to me. I think there was one more. So regarding the use of softball fields and the soccer field, there's soccer is year round. They were playing in that storm. I saw them over at River. Yeah. So I was driving and it's like coming down, and I look over. I think it was at River City. Was it at River City? Yeah, both. And there's tons of people out there watching them
It's
play.
World Cup, man. They'll play in the snow
Yeah,
right
I mean,
now.
I respect it 100%, but I think the point I'm making is that soccer, especially in California, right? I mean, it's almost year round. So I think it could be a programming thing if we had kind of a multiple use field. I agree that, we need more softball fields. I mean, we need more everything, right? But if the two were to coexist in the same area, I think that could be a consideration of Parks Department and how you would schedule that and avoid conflict of people wanting to utilize a soccer field versus people want to hit softballs, because those two sports don't quite jive, right? I mean, you're hitting hard objects into a field with people with no helmets or protection. So,
Soccer players.
yeah, and they're tough. But I mean, overall, I think it's a very ambitious, and I think the key that I want to really hit home is that anything that we can keep that makes this park unique to West Sacramento, I think we should make every effort to keep it. 100%. If something has got to go, I understand, but the trail, the labyrinth, the amphitheater, the bus, I mean, those are things that will make this park a West Sac park. And I think every effort should be made to keep those elements as best we can. Pickleball, we don't have any pickleball, things like that. So I think that's about it. Does anybody else have any other additional
I
comments?
just wanted to make one last
Sure.
comment too. I really appreciate everything that Commissioner Jans just said, and that, emphasizing what's unique is another criteria that should be applied to this decision-making process. I did want to note that it's getting hotter, and it's going to continue getting hotter. Those people who know me know that I work in the climate change arena, and so I know that the splash pad, maybe not, it's unique, but if we're talking about an amenity that can be available to people when our temperatures we had 115 degrees in Sacramento summer, and the projections that I deal with indicate that globally our average temperatures are going to continue to increase. So the resiliency of what has to be built into our forward-looking plans in terms of enabling people to enjoy the things that we're building and maintaining. So it's another criteria, unfortunately, that has to be applied to, that we haven't had to in the past, and we have to in the future to make these decisions. And along those lines, I was wondering about metal. You said something about the steel and the bus, et cetera, and the contact with metal surfaces during hot temperatures, how that's being addressed in the planning.
Sure. In most cases, the metal is a decorative space that holds the plastic slides and those other types of elements. So the climbing ropes, things like that. So we won't have like a stainless steel slide, the things that you really get in contact with. In most cases, it'll be like the side of the buses, the top, which you really won't be climbing on. And, the bus is 12, 14 feet in the air, so you're really not going to be on the side of it hitting it. So in most cases, the metal in all our playground equipment, right, we've got thick powder coat over most metal that goes down. Even the sides of this bus will be a powder coat paint. So it won't be direct hand to metal, it'll be hand to powder coat, which is still warm. And then if you start looking at, our slides and things like that, we're trying to face them to the east. So we get, that eastern side of the bus where the slides come out will be facing northeast. That kind of thing helps us think about that and not have, bars that are just, right on it. So climate change is a big thing. Trying to stay ahead of it is things like our big tree plan that we're going to have. We just literally cut half the turf out of this park. So the water bill will still be there, but it's going to be smaller, right? So there's a lot of things at this park we can do that checklist and say, hey, we're headed down the right road. And as we look at a guide for our future parks, we can start looking at water use. We can start looking at, repurposing buildings. You know, that's going to be a really cool element for that skate park. It's a one of a kind. And it went back and forth last night. Do we want the building? Do we not want the building? And it came to, hey, when it's 100 degrees out here, we're going to skate inside the building, right? And they're going to be happy about it. And they'll be able to use it instead of just going home. So there's a lot of things this plan captures. And as we, like said, look forward into other elements, let's make sure we, you know, capture these comments, which I will for you guys. We'll make sure we summarize this, because a lot of great things that should continue to be as this plan moves forward, to make sure when that construction is happening that a lot of these elements get incorporated. So I think you'll be super happy with the amount of, I'll use the word sustainability because it's overwhelming, but the waters, the different things we're doing here that are going to make it a good model for future parks. And that sounds like I'm kind of toting, but that's where design's going. We have to keep pushing. How do I stay ahead of climate change? I mean, how do we do that, right? I have a brother that's very much into it. So all my plans he looks at and goes, what about that? You know? So.
Sounds like a kindred spirit.
Yes.
Of it. Yeah.
But all great comments, you guys. I think as, oh, she's got another one.
Yeah.
But to reemphasize the thing about when Susan mentioned climate, I grew up for part of my life in South Asia, and 116-degree temperatures there were very normal back in 1991 when I lived there. So it's something that I grew up with, and one thing that that like people that come from warmer parts of the world have always felt, I'm including myself, is that our parks don't take advantage of the fact that, like in other parts of the world, people go out in the evening because that's the coolest part of the day, and it's like early morning and then like evening. That's something that I think we'll have to adapt to in terms of recreation and stuff as we move forward, because unfortunately our climate is warming very, very fast. And especially for little children, it's not healthy to be out during 115-degree temperatures. So that pavilion, that amphitheater, I think is more so necessary to have as a gathering space.
Okay.
That's shaded, that's like an outdoor space that provides people with an opportunity in the evening to gather, and also including the fact that you don't have to have kids to go to a park. You can still gather and be there, whether it's for theater or whatever music otherwise. So I wanted to just kind of emphasize that's another reason I would love to see that feature be there, in whatever capacity, you know. So I understand that this won't, like you said, won't be eliminated, but it'll be just like, you know, one version of it. And the other thing is seeing this soccer field. Having lived over there off Proctor, said Poplar earlier, I was mistaken. I don't know why. I saw there was a league there of I think like mostly Latino men who played there like very religiously every Sunday, and there was like people selling like, you know, tamale and whatever. There was like a presence of a very like it's a community that was used very heavily by that community. As for the sake of equity and inclusion, I think we should definitely recognize that. And I think someone from the staff told me that they were working with this group of people, like going out there and talking to them. So I was happy to hear that, and that's at least at the October 12th meeting. So I think I would also reemphasize that, you know, here we are. We want to acknowledge that these folks are there. I don't know if they've been able to come to the meeting. I don't even know if they're West Sac residents, but they're definitely there using that park for the last decade or more. And so, you know, having this park, I like this. I didn't say this earlier, but because this is like an adult use field, you can have it, the U6 and the U12, U10, U12, but you can also expand it into an adult use, play field. So I wanted to make sure that, and then on the other hand, just in terms of maintenance, I know that fall and when it's wet is when turf gets really torn up. So more reason to incorporate futsal into one of those pickle courts, because then those kids could be practicing in those courts and not tearing up the field when it's really wet. And yes, I know, like, those kids were out there in River City. I went to see, my son was at River City, my other son was at Bright, and there was pouring rain, they were up without there. I don't know why. I was like, to stay home, but they couldn't, of course. But I was at River City, I saw the turf, and I was like, oh my God, it's so sopping wet, and there's like, you know, the cleats are doing so much damage. I was like flinching whenever I saw like clods of like earth going up in the air from like a parks. I think like Dawn's gotten in my head about like maintenance. I was like, oh no. But you know, so I think we ended up canceling the second at Bright. It was a tournament. We ended up canceling the second game because it was just, they were too wet to play in. So for that reason, I think more reason to have like alternative turf like futsal, like or pickleball futsal for these kids to be able to have. And there's enough there to be able to have a little tournament there too. So again, and going back to the idea of like maintenance and costs, you can charge a fee. I know that West Sac Soccer Club probably would be totally fine with that. I know you have a relationship with West Sac Little League in terms of like how they maintain parks, and encourage the city to reach out to the club and to see what they can do, or more of what they can do to help manage those areas. And one last question, this is for the staff and for Tracy. How much do we work with West Sac Streets team with like in terms of you know, like how their relationship with the folks that they serve, and then like the park? Did we work with them at all?
Downtown Streets?
Yeah,
Is that what you're referencing? Yeah, we do work with Downtown Streets. Jason's team coordinates with them very closely, and his division supports them when they have cleanup efforts to provide additional resources. And I don't know if there's anything specific we'd want to share, Jason, but we do coordinate with them and work with them very closely.
Yeah, so thank you. My team works with Downtown Streets regularly, if a few times a week at the very least. We support each other on either projects that they have or our projects that we're working on too, large scale cleanups, things that we just need more help with. So it's a constant teamwork.
Like club.
Yep.
And I'm happy to hear that. So my husband is a public health nurse, and he was worked very closely with Downtown Streets teams when they were doing like vaccination efforts. And so it makes me feel better as like a commissioner, as a resident, knowing that you have such a like collaborative relationship, because I know that in those teams, they get to know the folks they serve pretty intimately. And so I would think that there would be some communication about like knowing that someone's going to go and like camp out at a park. Like, I mean, it wouldn't just be an arbitrary thing. And I'm sure, it's not saying it doesn't happen, it does. But like, I think these folks are very intimately connected with the clients that they serve. And so I think for the sake of our own education and for knowing that there's efforts in our community to help combat the very real crisis of like, you know, people who are unhoused and the things that's happening with them. So thank you, Jason, and thank you for your presentation once again.
Thank you.
Any other additional? Thank you so much for the presentation. I think Commissioner Ahmad brought up something that's really great about going out in the evening. So anything with lighting, I think that was a great point, because it's the truth. When it's really hot like that, I mean, that's when you walk your dog. That's when you go out with your family. And a lot of times with those hot summers, it's usually some, you know, I've been here all my life, and there's usually a wave of drought. And that's usually when water conservation comes into effect, and Splash Park might not even be working, right? It might be shut down for water conservation. Right. So lighting beyond 10 p.m., you know, maybe into 11, because it doesn't even get dark till, what, 9:45 in the middle of summer here. So, you know, I think those are some great comments. Again, well done, Commission. I'm proud to be up here with all of you. Thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful, wonderful job.
Well, it'll come back to you, I imagine, as an update when we finalize this. So, perfect. Thank you all.
Yes. So that actually, we'll move on to the director's report, right?
Yes, thank you.
Item number 4.
So a few updates. First, an update that I'm not happy to share, but we're sad to announce that our secretary, Katie Fox, is leaving the city to pursue other opportunities. We've really enjoyed having her, and I know she's just done a fabulous job of clerking our commission meetings. But she's got some exciting professional adventures ahead of her, and her last day is Thursday of this week. So we are also grateful that Katie Dyke, who you know, who has clerked this commission before, will be helping us out in February at your next meeting while we work to get this Katie's position filled. I also wanted to share that this year the City Manager's Office launched a new program called the Resident Assistant City Manager Program. And this program offers department heads an opportunity to assist the city manager with various responsibilities and special projects for a 10-week period. It also allows staff to backfill in department head roles. So it just gives our staff a lot of exposure to different management positions. And there have been 2 rotations so far. And beginning in January, I'll be serving in the next rotation for a 10-week period. So during that time, you'll see Aaron Rivas and also Jay Chahal, who's been helping with a lot of our park projects, working together along with all of our staff who will be stepping up to help out in a variety of ways to serve as kind of department co-directors. And then just a reminder that City Hall will be closed for the holidays from December 26th through January 3rd of 2023. And as part of that, I just want to say on behalf of the entire Parks and Recreation Department, thank you for a year of amazing service to our community and for providing great feedback and your ideas on programs and projects. And we wish you all of the best this holiday season and look forward to working with you in the new year.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll move on to item 4B, which is, does anyone have any questions for Tracy on what she just? Okay. We'll move on to 4B, which is Commissioner Communications. And if you're up for it, we can go right to left this time. Does that work? Or would you just like to raise hands? It's really up to you. We'll go right to left. All in favor? All right. Go for it, Vice Chair. If you have anything.
I'll be very brief. I am excited to see that there's a shade structure going up above the park right next to my house. And it's, it's one that gets rained on and the rain puddles and, obviously with the heat, it's just a nice little change. And so I'm excited to see the security fence come down and that open back up. Thank you.
Commissioner Castro?
So would it be about everything?
Well, if you have something that you want to share with if you don't, that's totally fine. It's just the opportunity.
There's just so much that has gone on in the city, like so many different activities, and every event there was a Parks and Rec booth out there and representative. So I want to acknowledge that because they're everywhere for everything. So for example, Rock the Block, I saw a lot of people at Rock the Block. I actually nominated a house and it was picked for Rock the Block, so we got to do that. And the Fall Festival, I saw Lucy. I see Lucy everywhere actually. So and then I want to remind everybody, like she does like this Zumba class during the day that everybody can join and go to. So that looks like a lot of fun. I think I'm going to try to do that. But I want to. We had the Veterans Day Parade, and I saw Dawn there, and I actually ended up having to, well, not having to, but I volunteered. The person that was supposed to direct and register everybody got sick. So I ended up like getting into that position, and it was just interesting to see how actually was really proud. Like there were so many floats, so many community members, everybody, all the faces that I saw there. So that was a really fun event. We got to sit in or ride with the Yolo County Sheriff's their like motorcade. So that was really cool. And then coming to a lot of the city meetings for the new bridge that they're going to be naming after our former mayor, and Recovery Cafe. There's just so many different things that I just appreciate our little city being big. So that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Our little city being big. I never thought of it. I think of Reno when I hear something like that. But I had an experience today. There was a ribbon cutting. I didn't make the ribbon cutting. I made all the cookie eating and coffee and chocolate drinking part. And I want to get this right. I'm looking at Tracy because she warned me, and I said, you're going to have to fill in the blanks for me. Girl Scout Troop 808 sent a letter to Tracy some time ago because they're very art-oriented, the Girl Scouts, and they wanted to work with an artist at River City High School. So then they ended up at the Art Culture Commission because they wanted to artistically designed coverings over utility boxes that we see. There's a special name for the covering. You remember what it was?
They're wraps.
There you go. There you go. The wraps. Okay, so they did 3 of them. So they had a ceremony today. Connie Leak had the ceremony and did the ribbon cutting, and councilperson Early was there, and Aaron was there, and the Girl Scouts explained their art, and they actually had some art they had done and what it meant to them, and then how it came about that they put the wraps together, and they had the ribbon cutting of the wrap. And we've seen them around town, right, how they artistic. So I guess now that, like everything else, is we're going to do more, I guess, is in the future, is what I heard. So that was cool today. I had an experience in the main drain. I was walking in the main drain, and I saw a rip-rap dam in the main drain, and it was not supposed to be there. So I thought, I'm just going to walk down in that water, and I'm going to take it apart, because it's not supposed to be there. So that I thought, no, I'll wait. So I went back, and you know the bridge that goes from Patwin Park to Summerfield, there were 3 otter in the water, just messing around like otters do. And then I thought, okay, wait a minute, the riprap, you know, in the dam, in the water. And I'm glad I didn't mess with the dam, because I read the council newsletter, and it said, we have the well that is filled because we dammed the main drain and put the water in the dam that is now going to Bridgeway Lakes, which ties into the last agenda we had. So I'm going, whew. But then I thought, I hope the guys that did that knew we have otter. And that, yeah, okay, good. Because if they didn't, I wanted to tell you, we have otter. Okay, so you can share with them.
Were they otters or beavers?
I don't know. They're little brown,
I know we got
funny
beavers.
things.
I know we have plenty of beavers.
Okay.
They help us.
But they were cool.
Dam up berries.
And I'm glad they're there. And we know there's turtles and we know there's fish, but I didn't know they were, okay, beavers. Okay,
Maybe
great.
beavers.
This sounds great. So good. I'm glad they knew. That was, you know, I thought, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't mess with the dam, actually, you know. They say we're talking about community events. My Rotary Club did 5 booths at the haunted house for the Halloween event. It's been that long since we've been together. And I think it's time to get a climate change update. Suzanne, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to address that, but if you want me to do it now,
No. I was thinking
good.
it's time for the planning department to come back and get on the agenda and explain.
Yeah, my understanding is that the draft climate action plan for the city is expected to be issued soon, which is about as close as I can nail it down based on a meeting that the Climate Compact, it's very Yolo County-ish, which our mayor and our planning director, environmental services director, David Tilley attended, and that was the information we got in that is going to level, which will be a draft plan on which folks comment. So I think at the point that the draft plan is issued, then have to bring it to this commission very.
Okay, all right. And then regarding what Vanessa said, I did attend a master. Every once in a while I have programs here at the community center sponsored by Master Gardeners. If you're in the gardening, they're always informative. They're always fun, you know. And then I went to UC Davis. Chris put it together, the UC Davis falls class. What happens when you start falling, which after my surgery I'm doing more of, which I never used to, you know. Used to be able to step over the garden hose. Now it's a major obstacle, you know. But that was very informative too. And like what you were saying, there's a lot of classes and a lot of things going on. It was fun to come here and go to stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Munn.
My report back is I coached 2 soccer teams and we wrapped up the season. It was great. You know, I will always say that, like, you know, there's a lot of kids that like love to play soccer here, and a lot of parents don't know about what it means to like maintain parks and turf and I would love to see more education of parents and residents about that. I don't really know how to do that other than like word of mouth. Talking to them about it, you know, for instance, like I, as a soccer parent, but also someone that's really involved with my kids, and about like, you know, when is it okay to play? And so I was just thinking, like, people love the city, they care about the city, but they just don't know sometimes of those little things. So if there's a way to like inform the club, to then inform the residents, the players' parents, it'd be a good way to kind of for community engagement. Again, I don't know how, but and I don't think like an email or like people don't read those, but if there's a way to kind of like maybe at the beginning of the season address that. I know as coaches we have to go through all this like, you know, like background checks, et cetera, and we have to like acknowledge, for instance, like now concussions are a big thing, and so you have to make sure that kids are not concussed and playing. And so if there's a way for parents to maybe acknowledge, like, okay, I've read this about like maintaining parks and turf, and this is like my stewardship as like a resident, as a parent. I would love to see more of that, take some more responsibility and ownership over these play fields, because everyone plays on them and then people complain. And then I'm like, well, they are this way for a reason. And there's a role that we play as parents and as residents that we could be doing more. And it's not just putting it back on the city. You know, it's like it's a two-way relationship. So I'm not like trying to be a downer, but I think this is just like an opportunity for us to be interactive and dynamic about how we do it. But otherwise, the season was fun. Of course, the World Cup, as you all know, so it's fun to end the season that way. A lot of kids are excited to learn more about that. You kind of engage the world and you know, just feel like they're part of a bigger thing that happens every 4 years. So that's exciting. And now it's on to high school for the older kids who are playing. So the club season is over unless you're in tournaments. And I also want to give a shout out, as Commissioner Castor mentioned, West Home Run. Now it's called West. Oh God, I can't remember but you know, with Justine Jimenez, like she and her team are wonderful. We as parks oversee what they're doing. They were at every single Harvest Festival. Like I'm so impressed with Jacqueline and everyone that were out there. Every time there was any event, they had their booth, they had their little spinning wheel, and the kids were out there engaged, and they were signing up so many people for the scholarship opportunities and programs. I was really impressed with, my kid goes to JMPNS, the local co-op here, and a lot of families were signed up. I didn't think so many people knew about it, so it was nice to see people taking advantage of that, and knowing about the opportunity exists to be able to like sign into this and receive money when you graduate from high school to go to community college. So that's exciting, but I'm also like a community partner and with the West Sac Home Run, and one of the cool opportunities that came up was that, and I love the staff here and the folks here that are constantly innovating and thinking of new ideas, new ways to kind of engage the community and do things differently. And the same goes for Justine and her team. They met with us as community partners, and they explained to us that they're trying to create like a community calendar. And I'm sorry, Justine, if I'm like butchering this idea, but this is based on like one meeting I went to where they're trying to say, okay, we're going to create like a community calendar of high quality, like early childhood engagement events, for not just for the kids, but for the whole family. And then and if family attends these events, they will be able to put money towards their like college savings fund. And that would be any kind of community, a parks event or a private school event or a public school event. It's all in there, it's all inclusive. So as a parent, that was really exciting for me to see that this would be coming. I mean, this is still in the planning phases, so if I'm not giving anything away, but I love that, because I think that one of the things that's so hard, as you mentioned, Commissioner Castor, there's so much going on. You lose track unless you're like engaged in some of these things that are happening, unless you're kind of tied into the Girl Scouts, which I'm like, that's so cool. I wish I knew about the ribbon cutting. My girl, she's not in 808, but she's in a different Girl Scout, but I would love to have brought her to show her what the other girls were doing. So there's a way to kind of have a community calendar so we know where we can go and support each other, learn about other events. And in this case, with parents, they can go and then it contributes towards their college savings for their children. Like, that's really cool. So I applaud Justine and her team for doing that. And I told her, if there's anything we can do as a commission, as like residents to help encourage that, I think we need more of that kind of stuff. So thank you so much. And I don't think of anything else to report. I hope you all have a great new year. It's kind of weird to say that. It's like early December, but happy 2024. What are we at? 2023. Sorry, pandemic. It's like a time warp. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Reed?
So I already spoke about the Climate Action Plan, and as you know, we are the Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission. So as your representative, I sit on the YOLO Aging and Adult Services Commission, and two things. One quite disappointing is that there was a movement for the county to create a hub of services for aging and people with functional needs, and also affordable needing transitional housing. And it was to be located at the St. John's facility. And it was quite exciting there for a while. They were going to redo the campus. The county was going to acquire the property, redo the campus to include multiple services, like Meals on Wheels and the adult day health care facility, as well as this transitional housing and the YOLO Healthy Aging Alliance services. And it fell through. A lot of reasons why it fell through. I'm not going to go into them. We are looking to ways to maybe reinvigorate the proposal involving different partners, but it was a disappointment to have it end the way it did. And so that's still in the works to create basically a hub of multiple services to be accessed. And Supervisor Villegas was also very interested in and focused on the need sometimes for transportation services for folks from West Sacramento to be able to access services in Woodland. So it's still in the ether, but it hasn't come to fruition in terms of a concrete way to proceed along those. So that was unfortunate. Meanwhile, the Age Commission is also continuing its work in emergency response to make sure, especially that folks with seniors and folks that have functional needs have the kind of emergency response that is required in emergency, whether it be a wildfire or flooding, or even just loss of electricity service because of shutdowns due to wildfires or other maintenance issues. So we continue to emphasize the importance of making sure that the level of communication with those folks who are particularly vulnerable in those situations are known, and not only that response is directed to them, but also we already had a round of presentations on emergency preparation for these particularly vulnerable populations that include things like go bags and making sure your medical needs are going to be met, and that you have people that you can contact to assist you, and also in terms of for those that are not a particular issue here in West Sacramento, although it can be out on the river, but that ways that you can protect your home and make it less vulnerable to some of these events. And along those lines, also just a note that the county is now involved, and I know the city of West Sacramento will also be involved in the reworking of the hazard mitigation plan that includes all hazards, including flood, fire, and it is a joint activity of the county that involves cities, and also at the end of the day comes forth with the mitigation strategies and projects that could be implemented in order to prevent or reduce the impact of some of these hazardous events that include heat waves, and that will have a big bearing on safe places people to go during, again, power outages that occur during the heat waves. So because they simply can't maintain their properties with sufficiently low enough temperature to be habitable. So those are some of the things that are going on at the county. I'm very happy about the YOLO Climate Action Commission, from which I also sit, and we've just launched a new website. Another one of my things about websites being serviceable for the public, to be able to navigate them and find the information that they need to be able to act on their own, to include and to enhance their own resilience and reduce their own carbon footprint. And so we have just hired a consultant and are engaged in development of a climate action and adaptation plan that would be countywide, with a focus on the unincorporated areas, but hopefully through coordination with the various cities in the county that will integrate with the city plan. So that's being launched. And also the county adopted, as we talk about engagement, outreach and engagement, it's a real challenge, especially when you're talking about the vulnerable populations and how to reach them, how to communicate with them, especially those that don't have digital access, multiple languages. And they're also just hardworking people who are trying to put food on the table for their families and for their communities, and don't have time to sit in commission meetings. And so I sit on the engagement and equity subcommittee of the Climate Action Plan, and we're looking for more ways that we can reach out and engage the vulnerable communities that are largely, whose voices are typically absent when we're forward planning. So I'm open to all suggestions, connections that anybody has about how these kinds of outreach can be successfully initiated and followed through. And in that regard, the county just adopted a program of financial incentives for those folks who would sit on our working groups that we're organizing for the commission. They give us their time to help feedback with the communities in which they live. Climate Commission, the engagement plan, the climate action and adaptation plan as well. So those are good things, and all input is welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. I'll be brief. There's a lot to catch up on, and I appreciate this is one of my favorite parts of the meeting, is to hear what everyone is doing in the community, because I think everyone's putting in their time, not just here on this commission, but out there in the community. And I think City of West Sacramento is lucky to have all of you. So a couple of things that happened over the summer, I guess, since I missed the July meeting. I was in Boston, in your old area. And then October we had the meeting. So we completed the NFL flag football. So that was another youth program that was run by the City of West Sacramento. It was fantastic. I was able to coach a team again this year. Kids had a blast. The games were always on time and well run, and there was a lot of kids this year, a lot of kids that played. But they all got jerseys through the city. The coaches received equipment bags with flags and footballs, and it was just a really well done program. So I wanted to thank the city staff for that. Chris Froschrock, I know, was out there even refereeing a couple of games, I think. Right? I hope I didn't give you too hard of a time, but yeah, it was great. It was just great to see people out there having fun. So I wanted to thank Chris and Tori. As well as Brian. I don't know the referee's last name, but I don't know, but Foster. Yeah, Brian, he's fantastic. Kids love him. He's really great out there. But it's a great way of kids to get involved in sports. sign out if they like it. Learn about accountability and all those great things that youth sports brings to character of kids. The city of West Sac put on a tournament, a regional tournament, at River City High School, so the kids got to play on the big kid field. I think we had 3 or 4 fields going at once. Forgive me, I don't remember the other cities, but it was basically like a greater Sacramento. Like their flag football teams all came to West Sacramento at River City High School and competed in a tournament, and it was great. It was my first experience with that. So again, thank you for putting in the effort to get that done. I know that was a lot of work, but it was a blast. It was a great event. And then most recently, I attended the Christmas tree lighting, which was fun. There was a ton of people there. There was so many people there, and I remember just being in my experience with all of you, just looking around, just really appreciating the city of West Sacramento and the community that we have to come, to light this tree. And there was performances by a lot of youth groups, a few musical groups from the high school performed, and then we. I'm just going to say it. We had 3 separate countdowns to light the tree, for those of you that don't know. But in West Sac fashion, it worked out even better. So I don't know if it was planned or not. So I got some questions about that, because once it finally lit, the crowd went bonkers. And I just smiled because I thought that was just fantastic. So I just want to go on record and maybe order a new switch or whatever the issue was, or just keep doing that so it's that big dramatic, like maybe do it twice or 4 times next year to kind of keep people on their toes. But that was a great event. There was a lot of vendors there. There was kids. There was people of all ages. Just the whole community kind of came together for this event. Even though it was like 38 degrees outside, there was still a ton of people. I know 38 degrees isn't anything, Jason, but it's cold for here. Anyway, so that was a blast. Thank you to everyone who attended that, and thank you to all the staff that put those things on. Those were 2 of the highlights of the last 4 or 5 months. I have a question. When is our terms officially end? And is that at the end of this year, or is it February? Our terms? When do our terms as commissioners officially end? Is it February, or is it the end of this year?
Well, I think it's sometime typically in February. So you have a February meeting that's already been scheduled and approved by this commission. Normally, it kind of happens after that meeting.
Okay,
I mean,
so we still have one more meeting together, right?
I think so. Is that, Katie, do you have more information on that?
No, I think I had asked for days, sorry. Although we are losing one person before then, right? Isn't somebody resigning? Or is that from our other commission?
No.
I think they're just not, potentially not applying for another term, but it varies. But I think at this point, maybe plan on the February meeting.
Okay.
That's how I
Because
remember
it's
from previous years.
Yeah.
That was always February was the last one before.
Yeah, that's what I remember as well. Okay, well then that'll change the rest of my comments if we can meet again. So I was just going to say goodbye, or not goodbye, but just thank everybody. But I'll save that for February. That'll be even better. So that's all I have. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the great presentation. And again, thank you city staff for staying here. You've already worked all day and you're still here. And I just want to let you know that we noticed that and appreciate everything you're doing. So with that, I will call the roll to adjourn the meeting at 8:03.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move.
I'll say.
So we have it moved by Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Mott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, hearing none. Good to call the meeting at 8:04. Thank you.